Look at the first word. Got it? Remarkable? Yeah, this is a very important step. There are so many different kinds of book tests. It's always a challenge to know which ones really work in the real world. I'm going to show you what I actually use in front of paying customers. That one, the name of that chapter, just look at it for me. It's called Cradle of History. Is that right? And it's chapter 9? It's a chapter 9. I've always been a James Bond fan. And after Ian Fleming died, and he wrote like 12 or 13 James Bond novels that they made, like Goldfinger and From Russia with Love and all those old ones. Then a number of other people wrote James Bond novels. A good friend of mine who's since passed away, unfortunately, was John Gardner. And he wrote more James Bond novels than Ian Fleming did, actually. And some of them were made into movies. This one is called Seafire. And it came out in 1995. And it's the first year that Bronson played James Bond. And that was in GoldenEye. And this, actually, GoldenEye was this story. But the cool thing is, when it came out, you know how authors always dedicate the books to somebody? Can you see what that says? Read it out loud.
For my good friend, Richard
Osterland.
As much of a Bond fan as I am a fan of his incredible talents.
So I have a Bond novel dedicated to me. That's pretty cool. I mean, I realize it's not a Pulitzer Prize, but it's still pretty cool, you know. So anyways, you can look that over. But anyway, you know, it cost me a fortune. It cost me a fortune, of course, because back then when it came out, everybody I knew, all my friends, it was like, oh, well, get me a copy. I want a copy. And before I know it, you know, I had to buy like 100 copies and give them away. What's that?
Can I take a picture of it?
Sure you can. Sure you can. Just of that. Nothing else. It's scary these days what might end up on YouTube, you know? Anyway, so because of that, I decided at some point, so that I could brag about it, have bragging rights during my show, that I would somehow come up with something using books that I could use that with too. So I got a bunch of books, even a dictionary and a bunch of other books to use. And let me get somebody who I haven't asked to help me yet. I haven't asked you to help me, have I? Your name?
James.
James, come on, see him right here, James. James, you can just check out this book, just a cheap book, you know, like the kind you buy in Walmart and you know, in the cheap book section or a dollar store even. That's probably where I got that. Take my card and just slide it into the book anywhere you want. I'll just hold it. You slide it right in. Right there? Okay, now I'm just going to open it where you slid the book. Look at the first word on the page.
Okay.
You got it?
Got it.
Think of the word. Is the word increase?
Yeah.
Is it? Okay, good. Here, take it. Do it again. Slide it somewhere else. Slide it somewhere else. No, he's going toward the back of the book. Look at it.
Yep.
Got it?
Yep.
Think of the word. Think of it. Anxiously. Is that the word? Thank you very much. Have a seat. Yeah. Here, let me. I'll grab a different book. Here, slide the card in somewhere in the book. Okay. Look at the first word. Got it? Remarkable. Thank you. Here, let's do it this way. You take this book, okay, and you hold the book there, and take this, slide it anywhere you want in the book right there. What page? Say it out loud.
74.
Open your book to page 74. Okay, look at the first word on that page. Brother. Look at the next word. Marveled. Then something like the next word, you looked at it partly and not something about like sleeping or something like that, or tired or what? Sleepily. Thank you very much. Yeah. You know, have you been looking over the James Bond book? Okay, let's do this. Here's another book. what I want you to do is take this book, because some people say, well, maybe you've memorized all these books. Like I could do that, you know. And besides, I grab different books every time I leave my house. I grab a stack of them. But what I want you to do is just take this book, which, again, you know, they're all different. Just open it like this near the middle and just bring it up and show him the page number.
Which one?
The guy who's got, what's your name? Rob. But do it like this, so even you don't know the number. So only he'll know the number. Just open it like that. Like stand up, hold it like this, open it anywhere you want, near the middle somewhere, and show him the number of the page. Okay, you got the page number?
Which side?
You sure? But it doesn't matter.
I got both.
You got it? Okay, close it. Okay, close it. Now, open that book, your book, to that page. Like, open it up to the same 2 pages, whatever. Okay, as you look over both sides of the page, on this side, am I correct in saying this side's got blank areas on it? Yes? Yeah. Okay, is that because that's like the end of a chapter? Yeah. On this side over here, that's the beginning of a new chapter. Okay, that one, the name of that chapter, just look at it for me. It's called Cradle of History. Is that right? And it's chapter 9? Yep. Is it chapter 9? Okay, now wait a minute. Let's try this. Over on the other side of the page, the blank side. No, on the same page. Okay, you said a chapter ends and there's like a lot of space. Instead of using the first word on that line, let's use the last line on that page, since that's above all the blank space. And let's use the first word on that last line. So that'll be isolated from all the rest of the printing. Do you have that? Okay, just look at it. Let me try to pick that one up. Oh, wow. I'm having trouble. I'm sorry. I was going so good all along here. Now I'm having trouble. Wow. I can't get it. I have an idea. Close the book up. You know the word, right? Close the book up. And just hold on to it for a second. It's the dictionary. Look the word up in the dictionary. It's a large print dictionary. Look the word up. And that way, you look the word up, and then you can read the definition of the word in your mind, and that will help me to pick up what the word is, okay? Just tell me when you got the word.
I got it.
Okay. Now, was it the first word on the last line? Was it? You're looking funny, Ed, because you were looking over too.
Yeah. Oh, it might not have been.
Here's what's happening, because I'm getting 2 or 3
Yeah,
thoughts.
So he actually looking at the last word of the last line.
You were
I was
looking.
looking at the first word in the last line.
You know what? This is what's totally confusing me. Well, because see, I'm not trying to make excuses, but understand if 2 people are thinking of different thoughts, then that's probably what messed me up. But that's okay. You look up the word, because I don't have any idea. Remember how it was chosen? Somebody just randomly opened the book, right? So just tell me when you found the word, okay? Because here's what happened. When he said the first time, he said, I found the word, and the guy sitting next to him was thinking in his mind, that's not the word.
Well, that's all we had.
Yeah, but, so tell me when you got the word.
I do.
You got the exact word?
Pretty much.
Well, it can't be pretty much, it's got to be the exact word. What's that? Is it the exact word?
Actually, it's kind of a verb, so.
It's kind of a
It's
verb?
a verb, so yeah, it's difficult to say the exact word.
I'm sorry, just even with this, I'm not getting it. What is the word?
Service.
Service. And that's what you're looking at?
We're looking at serve.
Well, that's not the word service.
Yeah, that's why.
You should have looked at service.
We're there. It's just not in there.
What do you mean it's not in there?
It's not in the dictionary.
But it's the word service. That's got to be in the dictionary. It's a common word.
No, it's not.
Well, take a look.
It's not there.
I'm under S.
Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Open dictionary up to the back cover.
If this happens,
There's a piece of paper there. Stand up, stand up, stand up, stand up. Take it off. Take the piece of paper out. Stand up and read out loud every word that's on the paper.
all right, you're not saying this right, erratum, whatever that means. The publishers wish to apologize for misprint in this book. The word service in quotation marks does not appear.
Thank you. I know. Makes no sense, does it? We now approach a lesson dealing with book test. Now, I'll be honest, over the years, I've done many different types of book tests in my show. Most of the tests that I've done have not been original material, but rather based on other book tests that have already been recorded in different texts and what have you. For instance, the Seafire sequence that I put out years ago, that was really a compilation of different methods. And I used my forcing bag. That was more highlighting our new forcing bag than it was an actual book test. And it was meant to show how just by forcing a few numbers, you could get all these different effects together in one test that would play dramatically. However, in my shows that I actually perform at live, I've only done the Seafire sequence a half a dozen times. Most of the time I do short, snappier effects. This, as I mentioned in the last step on cards, it's important to me that there's consistency in the mind reading. If 1 minute I can tell somebody the name of a person they're thinking of, why would I have to go through a song and dance to divulge a word? I ought to be able to get a word as quickly as a name. That would make sense. I often see people doing a book test, and it's like, okay, think of your word. Let's see, the first letter, it's sort of a squarish type letter. I believe it's like half a square. It's perhaps L. I said, no, yes. The next letter is round. It's sort of like a circle. Is the letter 0, 0, or O. And it's like tedious and drawn out. I suspect one of the reasons that happens is because some of these book tests on the market are kind of expensive. And I think people who buy them want to get the most money out of them. Just like people, you ever think about people who buy these big illusions to use in their show? A lot of times I think because the illusion itself is over in a snap, but they've got these big boxes and everything that they bought, they want to make it last longer. For instance, if the illusion is simply you show an empty box and close the doors, and when you open them up, a girl pops out, that illusion ought to take 5 or 10 seconds. But maybe for a lot of guys who buy this illusion, it's thousands of dollars out of their pocket. Plus, they got to take it apart every time they do a show and transport it and then set it up again and get all the angles right and everything. And even though the illusion probably is best as a 5 or 10 second illusion, they want to make it play for 5 minutes to get their money's worth out of it. And that's artificial. And sometimes I see the same thing happen with book tests. It's a real expensive book test, in one way or another. And so they're presenting it, and they want to get their money's worth out of it, and they want to make it last a while. I think that when you divulge a word, it ought to be quick and snappy and right to the point, just like with the cards. Earlier, somebody takes cards and looks at them, okay, it's this one, this one, this one, this one. That's my style of working anyways, the way I like to work. I've always liked the peak book type test. There are a lot of different peak books. My first one ever was something I learned from Danny Tong, and it's really simple. And all you do is you take a book or a dictionary or anything, and whatever the first word is over on this side, you copy it down here on this side. So that, or you can copy it up on top, either way. Because the audience only sees this side here, so that if you say stop, and they look at the first word, you can look at the same word over here. You can disguise it by putting it at the end of a line or maybe write it in here. Actually, the first time I ever did an effect like that, I used to use the phone directory. And I would let somebody choose a page in the phone directory and fold it over on itself and hold it up and say, okay, here, take this piece of paper and copy the top name on that phone directory, and I'd be holding it with bent over backwards, and I could be staring at the backside where I had written that phone number right in the corner down here, and I could be staring right at it while they were writing the number down, and I would memorize that phone number. That was years and years and years ago. I used to use that in my first mentalism show, and I talked to Danny Tong about that, and he said even he wasn't first with that other people had come up with a similar idea before then. Larry Becker put out a number of different sets of what he called flashback. Now these were really beautiful books. It's what I used, the second edition of the flashback. Really beautiful. You can still find these. I don't think they're making them anymore, but you can still find them on eBay and other places where people are selling them. But they're commercially produced and they're beautiful. And basically, you know, there's a number of effects built into this that I think is great. And again, there are other book tests that have these same features if you want to go out looking for them. Or in these days of self-publishing, you can do your own. You can find some available book that's public domain that you can just take, something like Wuthering Heights or some kind of classic novel, and you can just download it and change it or add things to the thing and then have it printed up. But basically in the flashback too, like the second word from the end on this side is the first word here, so that whenever somebody says stop or puts a business card in, one quick glance and you know the word they're looking at on this side. Plus, this is beautiful, this book test. There's another book where even though the pages are all different, the page numbers are all the same on the bottom. And that's great too. I use that feature in the book, along with another feature, the fact that all the books actually contain the same information inside. For instance, page 72, frequently of it, page 72, frequently of it. See, the covers are different, but the interiors are all the same. And again, there are other people who have book tests out that have the same features. So I took all these features and put them together in a single book test with, rather than thinking I'm going to use these methods to create a book test, rather in my head I thought of how I was going to build the book test to play better and better as it went along to a crazy, impossible ending. And I'm going to talk about that because that's my major contribution to this whole thing. And later I'm going to talk about a couple of other book tests, but I just want to explain totally in what I had actually done in the show. Seafire is, in fact, a James Bond novel that was dedicated to me by Martin Gardner in 1994. It actually says, to my good friend Richard Osterlin, as much of a Bond fan as I'm a fan of his incredible talents, something like that. And that was a big thrill for me, and I still try to use it to this day and incorporate the books in the show. You know, let me talk about that just for a second. This has nothing to do with book tests, but I talked about it in the field manual and other books. You know, people a lot of times try to criticize Kreskin because Kreskin is always name dropping. I appeared on Johnny Carson this many times, Merv Griffin this many times, when I was with so-and-so, big movie star, or this person, and they think, oh, you're being hokey. He's not being hokey, it works. You know, that's why he's working night after night after night for thousands and thousands of dollars a night. You know, you have to tell the people what they don't obviously know. I wrote another book I wrote called The Business of Magic. I say, you know, you're never going to make big money until you start flying to shows. That's when you're going to make big money. As long as you're in your own hometown, you're never going to make the kind of money you can make when you jump on an airplane and fly someplace. So that's why whenever I do a show, I make sure I tell people, I'm from Kentucky. They flew me in for this show. All of a sudden, your prestige goes way up. It's like, wow, this guy must be good. They paid for a plane ticket to fly him here and put him up. He didn't just drive over 2 hours from his house. He's got to be pretty good. Likewise, mentioning something like this, like I have a James Bond novel dedicated to me. Whoa, that's kind of, you know, it's no big deal, but still, it's kind of different. This guy must be semi-famous of some sort to have a James Bond novel dedicated to him. The same thing when I talk about, yeah, I was on Fox and Friends in the first year they were on TV, or I performed for, this president, or I did a show for this governor. You don't necessarily have to be an obvious name dropper. You can work it into the conversation, like I sometimes do when I talk about the jumble deck that I use in my show. I'll say, when I do a normal show for 400 or 500 people, or just for a few people, a regular deck of cards can be easily seen. But if it's a bigger show, like for 400 or 500, or even a show like I did out in Salt Lake City at the Salt Palace for 4,500 people, they couldn't see a regular deck. And so I used the name dropping or the fact dropping that I just did a show for 4,500 people as in the dialogue of talking about why I use a jumble deck. Or I'll talk about, I did a show for this president, and the Secret Service guy was standing there with the wire coming out of his ear, and I make a joke about that. But at the same time, I've just said I worked for a president with Secret Service people around, That kind of thing can only increase your prestige. Just like with the jumble cards being real thin, that I could fit 75 in the box that I mentioned a while back, the whole idea of this erratum effect, or errata effect, whatever you want to call it, which means there's a mistake in the book. You see that even if you look in Corinda, there's an erratum factor where he talks about certain mistakes in the book, and they call it that. The basic ploy and plot of this, which I love, I think this is one of the best things I ever came up with. I just love the plot, that a freely chosen word somehow is not in a standard dictionary, and then at the end there's a slip in the back that actually says, we apologize, this word does not appear in the dictionary. I think that's a brand new effect. I've never seen that. In all the books I have on book tests and everything, I've never seen or read of that effect, where the effect is a freely chosen word is missing out of a real book, a real dictionary. So I was really proud of that. Here's how it happened. I wanted to do an effect using the flashback books, and I wanted to do it, and I was going to have like maybe a Pegasus page type effect, where a page from a dictionary, appears something, or that you look it up, and when you get there, the page is missing, and it's now in an envelope or something else, whatever. So I went out to buy some cheap dictionaries so I could put the effect together. And so there was a word that I wanted to have in the dictionary. The plot was going to be, okay, they freely chose this word, they're going to look it up in the dictionary, and the page is missing from the dictionary, and it winds up that page is someplace else. That was the basic effect. So I go to look up the word, and the word's not here. And I'm saying, how could the word not be there? It's a simple word in the English language. And then I realized why this thing costs like $1. Because it's a cheap dictionary. See, anybody can call their dictionary a Webster's dictionary. It doesn't mean it's made by some company called Webster's. Noel Webster invented the dictionary. Anybody can call their dictionary Webster's dictionary. So there are, if you look at it, really, this is a pretty big print, which is great for the effect. And look at how thin it is. How could there possibly be all the words in the English language in this dictionary? It's cheap. Well, after I found that out, at first, again, it was like, what a cheap dictionary. Then it was like, wait a minute, what could I do with that? That's pretty cool. And I started looking through and finding all the different words that aren't in here. Now, I don't do mother of all book tests, but just so you know, I checked it out. A whole lot of those words are not in here. It's not very difficult to find almost a lot of different words that you could force in one way or another that are not in here. When I discovered this, I went out. This was actually not the very first dictionary I found that worked that way. It was a different one, but then I couldn't get them anymore. But then I found this one, and as soon as I found this one, I went to the manufacturer and I ordered boxes and boxes of these things. And we've been putting one in with each of our Transparent Forces change bag. You could probably, I'll hold it up. If you spot this dictionary in some bookstore somewhere, you can find it somewhere, you can go ahead. our supply is getting low. I'm going to see if I can reorder some more just so I won't run out. But that's not to say somebody else might not be putting out a dictionary that also is so cheap that it's missing half the words in the English language. So you just have to look around. But that's how I basically did this effect. What I did is I used the Larry Becker flashback. I'll work backwards. I used the Larry Becker flashback book, which forces page 92 and 93, went to my James Bond book and looked up page 92 and 93, and it looks like this. It's the end of a chapter here, and it's the beginning of chapter here. And I looked up different words, and I quickly found that the word service, which is on the first word of the last line of page 92, is not in here at all. So then I made up this erratum slip saying, the publishers wish to apologize for a misprint in this book. The word service does not appear. And notice I printed it up pretty big, so even somebody with poor eyesight wouldn't have any trouble reading it. And then I put it in the inside cover, but I did more than that. I took a glue stick too, and I put a little swipe of glue stick, not too much, but enough so because you got to think of little things like this. These are all important things. You have to put a glue stick in there so that if the person turns it down like that, it doesn't fall out ahead of time. See, with a little touch of glue stick, they can still pick it right out. It's not going to, see, it's going to come out just like that. But that little bit of glue stick, if you give it a squeeze, will ever prevent it from just dropping out by accident. So, this is the entire routine in the way I present it. I especially use this routine when it's more of a smaller gathering, like for instance a house party where they want me to do a living room type show and there's maybe 20, 30 people. This works really perfect in that situation. Worked really good in here last night with about 30, 40 people. What I do is I come out and I talk all about Seafire. I make a big deal out of this book. Talk about how it's dedicated to me, how I knew John Gardner, and hand it out. They have people read the inscription and hold on to it because this is an absolutely, totally ungimmicked book, so they can look at it all they want. Then while they're doing that, I talk about just going to a dollar store and buying a bunch of cheap books. And I've heard criticism of these books and other books. Oh, they don't look like real books. Well, actually, they do. They look like cheap books from dollar store. That's, if you go to the dollar store someplace and look around the kind of books they sell, yeah, a lot of them look like this. They're cheaper looking. So, and just for the record, you don't need to be showing the covers. You don't need to be like turning them toward the audience and reading off exactly what they say. I just say, look at a bunch of cheap books that I picked up. The audience never even sees the covers. Because I remember one time somebody had said to me, aren't you worried that somebody out there who's a magician might know a set of flashback books, because everybody knows what they look like? I saw Kreskin use these books on TV one time, and I remember he did exactly that. He kind of talked about them. They were edged onto the audience, and he took one and did something with somebody. You never for a second saw what the cover looked like. It was just, it was insignificant. It's a book, and here, look at all the pages are different, pick any one you want. So I never worry about stuff like that. I don't worry that somebody's going to be sitting in the audience saying, isn't that Larry Becker's flashback books? Or they don't look like the kind of books I saw at Barnes & Noble and all that nonsense. It's a book, it's a bunch of cheap books that I picked up. So the way I start this now, if somebody's looking at the Seafire book and they're looking it over and I say, okay, I got these other books here, let's try something. And I take my business card. I used to do this kind of thing, and you still can, but I just think the business card, since you can do it and it's easy to do and it's very fair looking, I like to use that. So in other words, what I'm saying is instead of saying, say stop, instead of doing that, I just say, take the card and just slide it anywhere you want into the book. So they slide it in, and what I do is I take the card and I bend it backwards like this and say, look at the first word. See, that's why I do it with these two fingers. I bend it backwards and use my forefinger to say, look at the first word on the page. Because if you're not specific with things like this, somebody might look at a different word, First of all, given the situation, it's probably one of the only words they can see. See, the card, that's another reason for using the card. If they put the card in the book and you take it and you say, okay, look at the first word, you're covering up a big bunch of the words anyways. They can only see between the cutoff of the book in front, the cover of the book in front of it, and where the card is, they can only see a few words anyways. So there's very little chance that they're going to look at some other word. Whereas without the card, if you just open it and say, okay, look at the word, the first word on the page. With all these other words, somebody might just look at a different word, even though the instructions are clear. But here, look at the first word on the page, and I see it. As soon as I see what the word is, I turn away like this. So the rhythm is this. Put the card in the book. Okay, look at the first word on the page. And as soon as I see it, I look away. You got it? I do this before I even turn back. Okay, think of it. And the book is off to the side. And it's like, just think of it. And again, no fooling around. No, I see an I see this. Is the word increase? Like that. Yeah. If you were really reading minds, you have to do this. You have to do this. Just like when I talked about in my book, Making Magic Real, Making Real Magic, I say, if you had like a coin and you wanted to make it disappear, it's not just good enough to practice the moves to make it look the right way. You really have to, even if it's like a penny, which I'm going to use in a second for another test, it's not just enough to pretend to put it in your hand and make the moves. You actually have to do it for real, see what it feels like, and then when you do it and feel it, feel the coldness, feel the way it feels against your skin, and really think it to be there, really believe it to be there. And then when it disappears, how is it going to disappear? Is it just going to be gone, or maybe it's going to dissolve into dust, where or maybe puff of smoke and it's gone? But you have to see that in your head to make it believable. If you see all that stuff and believe in it and almost see that puff of smoke when it disappears, then you'll be making the magic real for yourself, and you'll be making it real for your audience. The same thing. I call it the mental state of mind. How would it be for you if somebody were thinking of something, you could read their mind? You have to stop and think, what would happen in my head? How would I get it? Would I hear it? Would I see it? Would I feel it? So that's what I try to do when I have somebody slide the card in the book and I say, okay, just look at the first word, and they do. And I take it away like this, and I say, okay, just think of the word. And it's almost like half hearing it, half seeing it. It's disregard. Is that it? Disregard? Yes. Okay. Imagine if you were trying, and I use this little exercise when I'm doing the Senatire. I have somebody write something down, take it, do the Senatire, and give them the pieces. And sometimes I purposely try to forget what the name is. Let's say they wrote down Stacy. I purposely try to put that out of my mind and talk to them for a few minutes, take their hand, okay, picture the person in your mind. Now, all of a sudden, I can't remember the name because I purposely try to put it out of my mind. So now, all of a sudden, in my head, I almost panic a little because I'm on the spot now. I'm going to do this. People are expecting me to name the name. And I'll be looking at the person holding their hand, and it's almost like, oh, what was it? And I'm trying to remember. Stacy, is it Stacy? Because the memory will come back. The memory coming back to me would be what it would be like if I got it out of thin air, the way I would see it, Did I see it the way she wrote it and the way I picked it when I did the Senatire? Did I suddenly remember the way it sounded in the back of my head? You see, I try to recreate in my head artificially what I think ESP would feel like for real. And that's what I'm trying to do here. When they take and put the card in and take, okay, that's the same page as before. If I do this and look at the page, okay, now I just saw mysterious. So I take the card out and say, okay, think of your word, and I put it right out of my mind for a second. And then I guess I'm looking at them and I'm thinking different ways I can picture mysterious. Am I picturing the word in my mind? Am I hearing it? And I'm looking at them like this, and I'm actually trying to think of these different ways. And then, mysterious, is that it? Yeah. See? You have to act it. You have to act like you're really somehow getting it instead of just pick a word, okay, it's mysterious, right? Or whatever. There's no punch, there's no effect. When did he know? How did he get it? What did it feel like to him? Those are kind of things that the audience wants to see and imagine. So anyways, okay, I do that with the first person. I get the word. Sometimes I do it twice in a row. Oh, yeah, let's try it again. Here, go, put the card in. Because sometimes I get the feeling they almost missed something. So they put the card in, and I say, okay, look at and I turn away like this, and I get it real quick, and I get the second word. And then I might walk to somebody else with the same book and say, okay, you put it in somewhere. And take a look at the word and take it out and, again, do it. And I say, you know what, let's use a different book. Throw that one down. I take a different book to somebody else. Say, you put the card in somewhere you want. Look at the word. And I get that word. Throw that down. Then, for the third time, this is where I take advantage of the fact that all the books are the same on the inside. What I do is I go and I hand a different book, and I'm saving the fourth book for last. I take a different book, any one that's left, and I give it to somebody else, and I take the other book and I point out, I say, look at all the pages, they're really different. Put the card in anywhere you want, and this time, when they do that, I open it up, and I say, what page number did you put the card in? And I point to it down at the bottom of the page. Well, while they're focusing on that page number, I'm reading the top 2 or 3 words on that page. They're looking here. I'm reading, prowling figures were marked. So in the time it takes for them to say 84, I've got prowling figures were marked. And I say, okay, you open your book to page 84. Well, it's the same book. And so they open their book, and I say, look at the first word. Prowling? Yes. I'll tell you what, look at the next word. What's that? Figures? Yes. Let's try one more. The word were. Is that it? W-E-R-E? Yes. So you see, this time, not only has the effect increased insofar as they have the book over there, I'm not even near them, so there's no way I could be doing some kind of sneaky sleight of hand if they're thinking that. Plus, I'm not just getting one word, but first I get the one word, now I'm getting a second and a third word. So the effect is going up with each thing. So then finally we come down to the kicker, and this is, I love this. I have the last book that has all the same page numbers, even though the pages are all different. And I tell the person, just open it like this. I say to the person who's got my real book, I say, okay, well, let's use this one, and you take this book, pages are all different, just open it like this anywhere you want near the middle and show him where you opened it. So I make sure he understands. He's going to open it like this so he himself doesn't see the page number. And the excuse I use is something like, sometimes people think I've memorized all these books. If you do it this way, I don't even know what page it is. So he does that and shows the person the page numbers, and it's always got to be 92 or 93 if you're using this set. And so he opens the book to 92, 93, and that's, of course, where on this side it's the word service, the first word on the last line, and over here is Cradle of History, chapter 9. The way I like to present it to start is as a telepathy thing. In other words, they open the book up and I say, okay, look at the book. This is just how I did it in the show last night. Say, on this side over here, see a lot of blanks page, like it's the end of a chapter, there's only a few lines on top, and the guy, yeah, that's right. So that must mean the chapter starts on the next page on the right-hand side. Yeah. Okay, look at that. Let's see if I can, just look at the words. Is it Cradle of History? Is that it? Is that what it says? Yes. And it's what, chapter 9? Yes. Wow. Now you could end there. That would be good enough. But I want to use this kicker that I love so much because, like I said, I just think it's the cleverest idea for a book test. So I say, okay, let's go back to the other side. Let's try something really hard. You say the chapter ended and there's only a few lines on that page. Yeah. I say, okay, you know what? Rather than use the first word again, we've done that every other time. Go down to the last line and let's use the first word on that line. So that's what gets me to the word service. Just so you know, wherever the word appeared, I could direct them somewhere. Like, let's say the word I wanted to use was in the middle of the last line. Then I would have, said something like, let's really make this difficult. Let's go down to the last line and let's not even use the first or last word. Why don't you, go to the middle word, count in 3 or 4 words and use that word. You see, that's how I would do it. I would just direct them there. Sometimes, I'm going to save this for in a second because I want to show you all these different ideas that you can use with books, ordinary books, impromptu, because I don't want you to think you need to have special books to do these kind of tests. But anyways, so I get him to the word service. And when he finally, let me start again with getting him to the word service. I say, okay, so let's use the last line on that page. Use the first word. Just think of it. You got it. Close it up. Then I say, I'm having trouble. Here, look, here's the dictionary. Look up the word. That way, if you read it and read the meaning, that'll help me to get it. Now, sometimes there's a few chuckles here because that's kind of, people just think that's funny. But that's okay. It doesn't bother me. I just let it go by, act like I never even heard it. So they take the word, or the magazine, or the dictionary, and they look up the word service. And, of course, it's not there. Now, it was kind of funny last night because what happened was the guy who did it said, yeah, I see it. It was like, how could you see it? It's not in there. I know it's not in there. It turned out he was looking at the word serve, so I had to specify to him, no, the word's got to be exactly the same, but then it's not in here, and then it was like, well, what do you mean it's not in there? Is it a crazy word, some kind of foreign word? What kind of word wouldn't be in the dictionary? And then he says service. And then I look at him and say, service? Well, do me a favor, open the dictionary to the back cover. There's a piece of paper. Take it out and read out loud every word that's on there. See, you have to say that. If you don't say, read out loud every word that's on there, you're going to get somebody who will say something like, yeah, it says service. Just like if you say, you have a prediction. I predict you will say the number 1,298. If you give that prediction to somebody and say, read that out loud, they are liable to look at it and say, yeah, 1,298. And just blow the whole thing on you. So that's why you have to, like in this case, after all this trouble in printing this up, if I say, read out loud what that says, yeah, it said service is not in here. See, it's blown. All that work is for nothing. So that's why you have to say, read every word that's on that paper, whether it be a prediction. I predict that, through the process of my mental calculations, you are going to say the exact number 1,298. Whatever the prediction is, you want every word to be heard. In this case, it's erratum. The publishers wish to apologize for a misprint in this book. The word service does not appear. Then, all of a sudden, the magnitude of that effect sinks in. It's like, what? Are you kidding me? See, normally what happens, and it couldn't really do it as well last night because the way the guy said, yeah, the word's in here, and then it wasn't, and all that. But normally what happens is the person says to me, the word's not in here. And I say, what do you mean it's not in there? Do you mean, is it a crazy word that wouldn't be in the dictionary? No, it's an ordinary word. Well, is it a foreign word? No, it's just a regular word. Then I usually say, well, is the page that it's supposed to be on, is that torn out? And the person usually looks and says, no, nothing's torn out. It's just not in the dictionary. That is important for the audience to know because then they know that I just didn't tear out the page that's got the word on it. In other words, right in the middle of the page is where the word belongs, and it's not there. That's what makes it so startling. So that's why I love this effect so much. Like I said, the dictionary is totally ungaffed. And so with that, now I'm going to go back and talk about some other methods that you can use to do similar effects that don't require any kind of special books. One of the oldest and very best methods for doing a book test impromptu with whatever books you have lying around is the Hoy book test. I use a variation of the Hoy book test that incorporates one of my own ideas with another idea that is from Ross Johnson. Ross is just a brilliant mind. Anytime he tells me something in mentalism, it's going to be absolutely spectacular. And let me explain the basic Hoy book test first. Let's say you want to force page 118 in a book and you should have some little den of his own as your prediction, and it's on page 118. So you need to force that page, and it's a regular book. So 118 is the page you want to force. You take another book and you say, okay, I'm just going to go like this. Just say stop whenever you want. Say stop, stop. Okay, page 118. Open your book to page 118. And then they do it, and you arrive at page 118. And of course, the trick is it's not 118 at all. You just miscall it. You just say, oh, 118. Okay, open your book to 118. And if you that very basic and simple method will work if you do it convincingly. Just say stop anytime you want. Okay, right there, 118. So just open your book to 118. Now, the first convincer that I threw in, I came up with this, I thought years ago, and I don't know if other people have used this too or not, but I don't remember learning it from anybody, but I just started doing it, was when somebody says stop, I do this. I say, okay, just say stop. Stop right there? Okay. Page 118. So just open your book to page 118. I do that. That's a super convincer. Of course, it's not page 118. It's page 98. But the thing is, unlike this camera, which you can probably zoom in and get a close-up of that, somebody sitting there anywhere beyond this point here could never read what that page number is. But by me holding it up to them and saying, there you go, page 118. So you open your book to page 118. That just looks so convincing. So you just say stop anytime you want. Stop right there. What's that? Oh, page 118. Okay, so just open your book to 118. And it looks so fair by turning it to them that nobody ever questions it. And that's just like perfect. Nobody in a million years will doubt that you opened it to any place but page 118. I thought that was about as good as you can get with the Hoy book test until along comes Russ and gives me this idea. This book has about 190 pages to it. So you take the other book, which has to be bigger than that book. Okay, this book has like 287. This only has 190. So what you do is you time it like this. Okay, just say stop anytime you want. Stop, okay. Page 236. So just open your book to page 236. And in this case, you actually get kind of close to them and show them page 236. You actually walk up and say page 236. So, of course, they look at it and say, oh, there's only 190 pages in the book. Okay, I'm sorry, we'll do it again. Stop me a little sooner this time. Stop. Okay, page 118. How's that? You open to page 118. You see, that's a perfect kicker. The fact that the first time, and you manage to stop where you do by just starting near the center of the book so that you're already almost at page 190, so that no matter where they stop, you make sure you get past page 200. And there you go, page 246. And the first time, you really show them. You actually walk up close to them and say, see, page 246. Open your book to 246. And that's when they go, well, I can't. I only got 190. Okay, I'm sorry. Let's do it again. Say stop anytime you want. Stop. Okay, page 118. Okay, open your book to 118. But this time you only make that little gesture. You don't get near them and close it up. And now they open to page 118. And that just seems so fair that nobody will doubt that's not where you really stopped. So, you see, let's just say you had a dictionary like this and you wanted to do that erratum effect and you wanted to force a particular page in a book and you needed to get to that page. To force that page, you could use this method, the Hoy method, especially with those two throw-offs, with the Ross Johnson subtlety above going too far. By the way, it's interesting because when the movie Now You See Me came out, and Woody Harrelson plays the mentalist in the movie, and he was on David Letterman, and he actually did this book test for David Letterman, just like that, using the Ross Johnson subtlety. So I don't know if whoever taught Woody Harrelson the routine probably learned it from Ross or whatever, but he used that same subtlety there about using the first stop as too far beyond the number of pages and doing it a second time. So, but anyways, that will get you to like a force page if you want to elaborate and do something else. I never like to take chances when I work on stage. For instance, let's just say for one reason or another, I want to force a card. I would never use a fan force on stage. I either would use, I don't even like to use a slip force, even though that's pretty surefire. I still don't even like to use that. If I want to force a card like the 7 of clubs, I would just take the deck and put a hold a big old break like that on stage and say stop. Wherever they stop me, okay, right there, take the card. And just lift off all the cards above it. That way I can't make a mistake. Just say stop anywhere you want. I'll just hold like this, say stop. Stop right there. Okay, take your card. That's how I would do it. I don't want to take a chance of possibly messing something up on stage and having no way to recover. And the way I feel about that is with a card force, obviously there's a reason you're forcing the card instead of just using a stacked deck and learning the card afterwards. So that card needs to be forced. And I guess that prompts me to say, well, I better choose a method that can't fail, because if it fails for some reason and I make a mistake, how am I going to recover from that and get back and force that card, which needs to be forced? It's another thing altogether if I'm just can pick any card and I just need to find out what it is. Because even if I drop cards, I can pick them up and just stick them on the bottom of the deck and just do it a second time and use the stacked deck. Can't do that if you need to force a card, so I'm a lot more careful with that. Likewise, in the same way that I just hold a break and say stop and just lift off all the cards above a break, you can force a page in a book the same way. Any book that you get, you can just look through it. Like I'm on force page 142. Just say stop anywhere you want. Stop right there. Okay, look at the page where you stopped me. And it's 142. Simple as that. Pretty crude and basic, but it works. I just pick a page that I want to force, like 142, or I can just, any page I want, I can just like pick up the book and any idea where he's headed next. It's page 194. And just read it in my head and then just close it up like this. Now, I've got a big old break right there. But I'm holding the book like this. Who can see the break? See? The break's over here totally from my end, covered from all different angles. Nothing there, nothing there, nothing there. And then I just say, okay, I'm like this, say stop, and then I just start flipping through the book. And wherever they say stop, I just push forward with my finger and open it like that. Just a question. They say stop, like right here. I just do that. Say stop, stop right there. I just do it in turning to the side like this. Say stop, right there. Okay, see? Hand them the book, and I forced a page. Cleanly, no funny business whatsoever. And you can do that with any book. I mean, you can just pick up a book from any place and say, okay, yeah, let's use this one. Okay, I'm going to go like this. You just say stop, right there. Okay, take the page, look at the pages, and you forced it. So I threw that out a while back on another DVD, that quick way to just force a page. And it's, again, something I've been doing for years. I don't remember where I read it or anything, but to just, force it like you would force a card in a deck. And I had a lot of magicians and mentalists come up to me and say, I never saw that before. And I got to thinking about it. I don't know where I read that or what. I just have been doing it for so many years I don't even remember. So if you think of a book like a deck of cards, there's lots of different things you can do along those lines. Now, in the same way that what I just demonstrated with either the Hawaii book test, where you can force a page in a book, or using the method I just showed you with a finger break, where you can say, okay, let's use that page. For instance, let's say I wanted to force a page in a third book, like you can with the Hawaii book test. I can do the same thing with that finger break force. For instance, let's say I need to force page 200. Well, as I casually glance through the book, I could, in fact, find page 200 easily and get my finger in there and then say, okay, stop me anywhere, right there. Okay, whatever page that is, open your book to that page. You see, and that looks the same as before when I used the GAF book like this to say open to any page. And by the way, if you're going to do something like that, this is a very simple thing to do that works every time. Let's say I know ahead of time I want to force page 176, and I'm going to use this book to force it. Simply bend the cover way back like that and push it hard. You see, you almost form a break there. So now when you want to use that force, the book can be laying there. You can pick it up and you can just go like this, and it'll pop right open to that page. And you get your finger right in there and say, okay, just say stop anytime you want. Right there? Okay, whatever page that is, open your book to that page. So you get the exact same effect with an ungaffed book as you do with a gaffed book. Likewise, what I'm going to show you here out of the Sapphire collection, you get the same effect with the ungimmicked book as you get from a peak book. And this is how this one works, and I'm very proud of this too. You need a penny. That's why I call it the poor man's book test. And you simply, after the person is looking at the book and making sure it's a legit book, you palm the penny like this in between your first and second finger. And that's easy enough. You have it in your pocket, and you just drop your hand to your pocket, and you get the penny, and just hold it between your first and second finger like that. Then you take the book, and you're holding it like this, and you say stop, just like before with the peak book. And wherever they say stop, you say, okay, remember the word, the first word or first words or whatever on that page. And as you close the book up, you let the penny go. That's it. The penny's now in the book at that page. You pick it up and say, okay, you know, you could have looked at any word on any page, and you go like this, and you see what happens is that penny in there forms a break, and you just automatically stop right at that page. Let me do it again for you and show you how this works. Holding it like this, they say stop, you show them the page, you drop the coin in. Now, first thing is you can fan the pages like this a few times with your right fingers. That looks just to show that it looks very fair, and you'll never see a break there if you do that. Then when you go back the other way, what I do is, if you can see this on camera, I actually push with my forefinger in front and do this, and it almost breaks right at where the penny is. And I don't want a huge break, but rather than just look for the penny using that, if you get that little break there ahead of time, now you see it almost stops automatically and gives you plenty of time to see what the first words are in that page. You didn't even have time, and keep on going. And what it looks like is you say, okay, you know, this book has like, you know, over 200 pages in it, and, you know, you could have stopped anywhere, and you picked a page, and in that amount of time that I'm showing him how he could have stopped anywhere, I found that space and read that top line, and now know it in my head, and can go ahead and feed the information back. Chances are you can just toss the book aside. But if you don't want to do that, or it's not your book, or you need to put it back in the shelf in the store or whatever, it's a simple matter to steal the coin back out again, just like I just did in front of you while I was talking to you. All you have to do is, after you've done the effect, so somebody says stop, they look at the page, you drop the coin in, could be anywhere here. You could have looked at any page, and it's exactly, did you know that? That is what it says on that page. See, exactly, did you know that? So I really did read it in that quick time. And then while I'm talking, exactly, did you know that? Is that it? Yes. I just do the same move again, but this time I just let it flop open for a little bit, and the coin would drop right out into my hand, and I could get it underneath the cover and steal it away when I give the book back and just put the coin away. So those are 3 different methods for duplicating what you can do with a gaff set of books. And even though I like the gaff set of books to be surefire on stage, I'm never at a loss to do any of the effects that I feature with those sets impromptu anywhere I go.